This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to the video where I react to the hot takes that you guys leave in my comment section. Always a fun time. So let's just jump into it. First video we're going to be looking at the hot takes from is why Cleveland loves the Browns. Video I did talking about what makes us like teams and what makes winning feel good, right? Malik says, great video. The story is important. 2016, after seeing the Cavs come back from 3-1, the Tribe turn around and blow 3-1 lead in this World Series. The only thing that lessened my anger was that it came against the Cubs. Though I wasn't happy, it would have been so much worse with any other franchise. Yeah, it's like this innate instinct we have as sports fans. Like, when you lose to a Boston or a city that just, they win too much, right? And you know that win don't mean nothing to them. It's just like, you don't feel great about it, right? But when you lose, like if the Browns and the Lions lost to each other in the Super Bowl, whoever walks away the loser will be upset because, man, it's been a lifetime since one of them teams got there. You're going to be upset, but you wouldn't be extremely salty to no end like you would if it was like the Cowboys that beat one of those teams in the Super Bowl, or like the Chiefs that beat the Lions or something. Like, you would be truly salty if that were the case. But yeah, it's a great point you bring up, Malik. Thank you for the comment on that video. Tim Phillips says, Q, the problem with he's talking about me. Q, the problem with mainstream sports reporting is they give you stories because they don't trust you to find the sports interesting enough. Also, Q, we love sports because we love stories. This is an interesting way to paint me as a hypocrite. And I can see how you can get confused with that if I don't explain the point clearer. So maybe I didn't explain the point clear enough. But the point I was making about mainstream sports reporting isn't that they give you stories. I say pretty explicitly in there, the drama, the stories, that does matter. That does need to be talked about. But also, you need to balance it by talking about the sport as well, right? Engaging the sport. And sometimes the story is what's going on in the sport. I mentioned this, right? Nothing tells a better story than being down 3-1 because you know what the stakes are. You know who the protagonists and antagonists are if you're rooting for the team that's down 3-1. So I don't get, and I hope that you just didn't watch the video and you just kind of got this point out of it. Maybe I hope I explained the concept of the first video better than what you got out of it. But yeah, my point in that video was, the drama exists, and yeah, people are going to talk about the drama, and that's not a problem. But we're also not engaging. And I think this comment kind of demonstrates the point that I was making, because like, it seems like to you, Tim, you don't think it's possible that the story could come from the sport itself. Like, to you, you feel like the drama is necessary for the story. Like the outside drama, the other stuff, was that a good call or not? Like, that's necessary for the story, but the story always is possible to come from the sport. And that's when the best stories are told. You don't need all that extra to tell a good story in sports, because the sport is the story. And what I was talking about here is how you need to fail, or how sometimes the failure that you watch your team go through creates the story that you want to overcome that failure, or you see that failure be overcame. And that's why winning probably feels the best when you have gone through a little bit of that struggle, not when you have gone through a lot of drama, right? So again, try to de-link those two ideas and you'll start to get what I'm saying. The story does not necessarily have to be related to the drama. The story can be the sport because the story is important, but the story is the sport. It's the score. It's 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and it's a tie game, and 2 star players are going at it. There's no drama. There's no Instagram beef back and forth going in that. That's just a pure sports story. Who's going to win that game? Who's going to overcome? It's double overtime on the road. Who's going to overcome that story? Those are the stories we remember. The stories that are also about engaging the sport, not the nonsense outside of it. And again, there's a place for that. But also emphasize the sport itself, the story that's going on in the sport itself. And that was the entire point that I was giving, that it appears like missed you. And maybe that's my fault. I need to better communicate my points so they get to you. But also, I'm not perfect. I'm not going to be able to communicate a point to get it to everybody. So, hopefully this got to you, Tim. The next question, or not question, this ain't Q&A, hot takes. The next video is it this the best time to be a Cleveland fan? Is someone who was born in 2001. People born in 2001 sentient? That's a thing? Y'all be like asking questions? How old is somebody who was born in 2000? They in the league now, ain't they? Oh, give me a second, y'all. That hurt. Give me a second. All right. My bad, dog. I'm sorry. I had an old flash. As someone who was born in 2001. Yo, I remember that year. Like, that's nuts. All right. As someone who was born in, I grew up watching the Browns struggle to win more than 3 games per season. The Cavs failed to put anyone around LeBron, causing him to leave for Miami. And the Guardians struggled to make it past the divisional round until about 2016. For almost my entire life, Cleveland sports were mostly irrelevant and only experienced great moments through the stories of my grandparents and parents would tell. All the disappointment in those 23 years outside of 2016 have made me appreciate what we have now. I cannot be more excited for October this year, where the Browns Guardians will be rolling, and the Cavs season starts there too. So yeah, I mean, anytime you can be a fan of 3 different teams that are all doing well at the same time is special. And you got to appreciate those times because they're not always going to be there. Sometimes all 3 teams are going to be bad. But yeah, it's special, and anybody who grew up in those dark ages that I talked about in that video really should appreciate it because it's tough. It's tough. Joseph says 2007 was a great year. The Guardians were one good CC start at home away from the World Series. I remember that 2007. I think it was divisional round, right? Because it was against Boston. They had just beat New York, and that was like a big deal. And I remember just feeling like just seeing the life getting taken out of my dad as he watched that series. Like it was brutal. It, like, honestly, me seeing the pain that the Guardians put my dad through in 2007, probably why I don't go that hard for the Guardians anymore, because I saw the amount of pain on his face and I was like, dog, like I've never seen my dad feel that level of disappointment in anything before, until I watched him watch that 2007 playoff team. And just like the amount of hatred he had towards Boston after that too. That was a brutal one. That was brutal. It was like Daisuke Makazaka was messing us up. That's all I remember. The Browns were a lovable 10-6 with Derek Anderson, and the Cavs went to the finals. Josh Gordon was the highlight of the 2010-2013 Browns. I do think what separates 2007 to now is I would say 2 out of the 3 teams are really for real, and one of those teams are kind of for real, right? And in 2007, the only team that was really kind of for real was the Guardians. The Cavs were just like fun story that they went to the finals, but we knew that team was not good enough to win the NBA finals. And the Browns, like we knew that team was not going to last past that season. We knew that was a fluke when it happened, but it was fun as hell. Did we find out who is calling the plays? Let's see what your comments are about the play calling. Scott says, it matters who calls the plays, but how much really? We've covered this topic ad nauseum, yet many of us don't seem to learn anything. All of the offensive coaching staff and Kevin will have as big as an input as to what the plays are called. Then again, to expect some kind of change with Dorsey in philosophy and scheme. Then again, they expect some kind of change with Dorsey and philosophy and scheme. They don't just sit in a locker room by themselves thinking up plays in isolation by themselves. I really don't care if Kevin or Ken, as you said, it's a playlist. It's a playlist that's critical, right? The play sheet is critical as far as what they're going to call the order in. I think you do got it right there to call it a playlist, because it's like Kevin and Ken Dorsey, in theory, are going to put together a playlist. Now, what order that playlist happens in is going to be up to one of those two, but there's a lot of guidelines to tell you if this song comes on, we're going to put that thing on after it, right? Like, it's pretty put together. There's a lot of fail safes in there. The play calling thing, like once you really break it down, is not as dire as some make it to seem. But once that season start, boy, we get all the play calling takes. Like we be all reasonable about play calling in the off season. But the second the play gets called and we got to react to it, I will admit, people do start to lose their reason about that one. Pro Dog says success of a play is maybe 20% play calling, 80% the execution of the play. In other words, play calling is much overrated. I would add to that 80% execution of the play, 10% play calling, 10% luck, because a lot of times shit just works out. Right? Like you just call a play and their safety fell, or their corner just forgot what coverage they were in, or your wide receiver fell. So what was a perfect play call ended up being terrible, because now your wide receiver fell, he threw into the blank, and then boom, it's an interception. A lot of this is luck. Some of it's execution, and maybe you can roll some of the execution into luck, but sometimes you just get lucky. Sometimes a play breaks down, you roll to the right, and it happens that there's a breakdown on the defense that you could just take advantage of, and boom, you know, it's not exact. You don't just run the play that gets called 100% of the time. A lot of things can happen to where that play can be completely different than what was called. Sometimes you check at the line of scrimmage, you might change something, hot route, audible, all of that stuff could happen. And that's why I'm like, it's probably 10% what the intended play call was. It's mainly on execution, and it's a lot on luck too, you know, more than people think. All right, this video is about Kevin and AB extending their contracts. This comment comes from Sir Phillips, who says, what's crazy about this whole situation to me is that with 11 plus more wins, Stefanski will be the third best coach in Browns history as far as all-time wins go. Getting that many wins is something that is certainly possible and could happen. Yeah. I don't know if that should make me feel happy or like kind of sad that like all it took was 3 winning seasons to get Kevin Stefanski in the top 3 for a franchise that's been around since the 1940s. But I guess we play way more games now. So what, like you can play in 3 seasons the equivalent of what 5 seasons were for like Paul Brown or something close to that, right? Because you're almost playing you're playing somewhere close to 60 games in 3 years, depending on if you make the playoffs or not. So yeah, I guess if you think about it like that, where the bulk of the Browns winning history happened when the league was playing less than like 14 games, or less than 16 games, it does start to make a lot of sense. Mr. Roll Up says, okay, that's great, but we need to see some playoff success to go along with all the stability everybody is raving about. Losing to Chad Henne and getting embarrassed by a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback isn't going to get it done. I don't want the Browns to go to the Super Bowl. I want the Browns to go to the Super Bowl in my lifetime, not the Stability Bowl. This is a weird take, right? Because we're not going all the way there yet. Like, obviously, everybody who's excited about Kevin Stefanski getting extended and Andrew Berry getting extended is because they feel like those guys are people who are going to help the Browns get to exactly where you want to get to. The fact that they haven't achieved it yet is not evidence that that is impossible with this group of players. And then like the whole embarrassed by a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback thing, that is such a disingenuous way to put that playoff game, because it just ignores the fact that the Browns were incredibly injured going into that game. They were playing a undrafted rookie at the starting safety, but they had 26% of their salary cap on injured reserve. They were playing with a quarterback who was their third choice of the season in Joe Flacco, and he threw 2 back-to-back pick sixes, which took them out of what was a close game. Like, unless Kevin Stefanski told Joe Flacco to throw 2 back-to-back pick sixes to make it interesting, I don't know how you blaming that on him. And look, I'm not saying it all goes on Joe. The defense should have showed up. It was a team effort, but like, I don't love how you framed it. I'm not going to lie. This whole comment and how it was framed, I don't know if you a hater, Mr. Roll Up, but it sure is putting you on the hater watch list. Now, again, a hater is not somebody who just says something negative about somebody. That's not a good definition of a hater. But when you're going out of your way to frame somebody's accomplishments as negative for no real reason, yeah, that's some hating shit, right? And this is I don't know if you are a hater, but sir, in this instance, you was hating. Like, again, to point out that Kevin Stefanski needs to have more playoff success is not hating. I did that in a video earlier this week. That I said, hey, now that he's got that second contract, the expectations change for him. But like, calling it the Stability Bowl, framing that playoff like that, you know, losing to Chad Henne like you didn't play against the freaking Kansas City Chiefs. Sir, you hating. Like, you are absolutely, you tried to make that sound as bad as possible. Absolutely. Like, you was hating here. I hope you change your ways, because that, sir, was evidence of hating. You know, and again, let me be clear, because I hate when people use the word hating wrong. You know, hating's an art. When you hating, that means you going out your way to frame everything as negative as possible. Even if it's not true. That's what he's doing, right? Hey, I'm going to make it seem like Chad Henne played 4 quarters against the Cleveland Browns instead of 1 quarter versus the Cleveland Browns. Hey, I'm going to make it seem like the Browns had the upper hand and weren't injured coming into a playoff. Again, that's why it's hating. I want to clarify that, because, again, I don't want y'all to be out here calling people haters who ain't haters. It's a very delicate word. Ted Rivers says, why restructure Watson if they don't need to? The reason they want to restructure Watson is if he's going to be a part of this team's long-term planning, $1 today is more expensive than $1 tomorrow. So if you spread that money out, you're going to spend less money in the cap overall, which means you're going to have more cap space over a 5-year period than if you would just straight up pay the cap hit. That's why they would do it. But that's going to be it for Hot Takes. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.